Hello everyone and welcome to the Distinct Mastering YouTube channel. My name is Freddie. Today we're going to be talking about how to get a balanced mix. This is everyone's goal. Some get it, some don't. And I'm going to show you some tips today on how to create space and make things work together in the stereo spectrum and in the stereo field. Let's get right into it. Okay, so I was showing this graph I'm going to pull up on the screen here in a second to a friend of mine recently, which prompted the idea for this video. This is a very common picture, and you can catch this online. Some of you may have seen it, some of you haven't, but I'm going to show it to you because I think it's important and it kind of sets the pace for what we're going to do in the DAW today. Okay, so here it is. This is the basics when it comes to getting a balanced mix. As you can see, the goal of a mix is to try to create the stage for the listener. And if you take a look at this picture, this is exactly what you're doing when mixing. You have at the bottom the stereo image left and right, and then you have the center channel. And then as you move up, you're looking at the frequency spectrum as you see on the right. So you have the low end, and then the mids, and then the highs, as you can see on the left. And what you're essentially trying to do is create space for all of these instruments you see in the middle. Now, if you look at the bottom in the squares, you'll see the mud. And this is where the mud always occurs, within the low end. Typically around 200 hertz and less, but you know, mud can occur on the sides as well. So that's why we typically keep the foundational instruments, the kick, the bass, the snare, and your main things like the vocals right up the center. Now, this isn't an exact graph of how you should mix. Mixing is still creativity. You need to put your own spin on it. This is just something that I recreated that you can find in a lot of books and online if you Google how to get a balanced mix or frequency spectrum. And I just want to note that this is not perfect. You know, hi-hats at the top, obviously, yes, you're going to have some hi-hats maybe in the center, but you might pan your hi-hats to the right. Hence why you see kind of the oval. So this is just a general guide of how to get a balanced mix. So moving up the center from the sides, you see you have the instruments on the left and the right, backing vocals, which typically, you know, a lot of times people will pan backing vocals left and right and then leave the main vocal in the center. You might have some cymbals and crashes and splashes to the right and to the left. And so as you get further and further back on the stage, further and further away, you can create that effect, the depth you call it, by reverbs and delays. So this is a great cheat sheet for you to always have in your back pocket. If you're interested in having this as a download, please shoot me a comment down below and I will set that up. Okay, now that we've gone over this, I want to show you guys in practice what this might look like with a track that I'm currently working on right now. Okay, so let me go ahead and play you this track just so you get the vibe and you understand what we're dealing with here. Okay, so this is just a basic track. I just created this idea yesterday, and it's not very far along, but it's far enough along to show you how I've panned things and how I've created this sense of space and getting a balanced mix. I also want to preface that getting a balanced mix is 90% volume. And I have a really good video on getting your gain staging right, as well as a video on K-metering, which I think will help you out, especially when you are looking at trying to get a balanced mix. So I'll leave you links to both of those down below. Make sure you go back and check those out because I'm going to get into something that's beyond the K-metering. Now, I've already employed the K-metering in this, just so you know. And that means that I've done that before we get into this. So looking at my kick drum, you can see that it's just straight up the center. And I don't have any panning going on, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, this is what we're dealing with. Like I said, I just started it yesterday, brand new track. Let me know what you're thinking about it in the comments below. Now, going back to our image, if you remember, the kick was right in the center. If I was to pan this kick, just for the purpose of what we're doing, I'm gonna loop this section right now. If I was to pan this kick, it would sound abnormal. Let's try. That's not how you normally hear dance tracks, and you don't want to hear it like that in the club. You want to center the weight of your track right in the middle, which then leaves room on the sides for all of the other spacious things you might add to your mix. Same thing here with the claps. Now, I have a lot of claps and a couple snares layered up here. One of them is, there's a couple loops, and they're all just kind of giving you different elements that I felt the track needed. But if you take a look, like this first clap is panned to the right, and then you have this clap panned a little to the left. And I use stereo split pan. If you don't know what that is, I have an old video. I'll leave you a link down below so you can check that out as well. But let me go ahead and play this and zero these out. So that's with them all straight up the center. Now I'm gonna undo what I just did. And to give you a little bit more extreme, I'm gonna just go further. So you can hear it's creating a little bit of space because each thing is playing off to the side. Now, pro tip for you, when you do pan hard like that, you're like this especially, you're gonna wanna turn your volume a little further down, because when you panning is essentially volume. If you're panning, you're lowering the volume on one side and increasing it on the other. Therefore, it's going to appear louder to the listener. So just a pro tip, if you do pan pretty hard, turn that down a couple dBs. And then as you continue to go down this, let me undo what I just did. As I continue to go down this, these are straight up the center, leaving more of the weight right in there. And these loops are light. They may look like there's a lot going on, but they're all kind of working with each other, and maybe I've taken some things out. Okay, then you heard a little conga fill. Moving into this bass real quick. Same thing, straight up the center. I wouldn't want to hear a bass to the left like that, or to the right. So that's another thing. Now I want to get into some of the top end of the percussion. Right now I only have this one open hat. And for this track, it looks like I panned it. Going back to what I said, if it's right in the center, it's just sitting in the same place as the kick. But now that I've panned it, you might play with the volume. And that sounds a little more in the pocket. Looking down here, I have a crash, which is also panned to the left. And what I'm just essentially doing is just creating more space for things to sit in the stereo spectrum. Mind you, I've already set up the K metering, which, remember, go back and check that video. So my gain staging is all proper, and it makes it very easy to mix my volume. Mixing is 90% volume. If you get your volume right, everything else becomes a breeze from there. Now, I'm gonna show you some more percussion. Take a look at this shaker right here. I have this one panned to the left, and then I have these percussion instruments panned to the right, as well as I brought some of this in more to squeeze the panning in. So I'm gonna move the loop over here now. So taking a look, I'm gonna just bring these back out to their full positions. You hear that? So it's got some stereo imagery in it already, but I'm just shifting that image Here's the shaker. So let's undo what we did. So you can kind of hear some movement, but each thing kind of has its own place. I could probably pan this even more. And I don't recommend panning things while soloed like this or adjusting volumes. I don't recommend mixing with the solo button on. I'm planning on making a video of this. If it interests you, please shoot me a comment down below and I'll know to make this video about the solo button. But moving on, so let's unsolo this. Now you see that the shaker loop and the hi-hat are kind of both in the same direction. It's very common to maybe put something like that opposite from each other. Yeah, I like that. See? And sometimes when mixing, you might try some things and then you listen back later like I just did right now. And because I was literally just working on this an hour ago. And you hear things a little different. Or if you go track by track and look carefully, you might find little mistakes that you've made. So let's move on. I'm going to move now over here to this section with this ride that comes in. And you see this one's panned to the right. I also have an auto pan on this one, so let's turn this off, bring it all the way back, and from there I went for utility, just monoing the signal out by picking the left channel, and then I went for the auto pan. So I'm going to undo what I did. So first I panned it to the right, you hear it over there, just to make sure it was mono before I put on this auto pan. Now, I could pan it back over, but I kind of like it circulating more to the right like that. You hear that? With everything playing now, it's all got its own space. Okay, let's talk about some of these instruments that I have going on here. So as you see, I've got just this one during the breakdowns, which is right up the center. And it doesn't look like I've gotten to panning this stuff much yet. The only things I've actually panned is this one sound. And I will be getting to this when I'm doing some effects. Another cool trick you can do is say pan something to the left, but then send it to a send and return. And on the return, pan it to the right or vice versa. And you can kind of just get creative with this. Use auto pans, something like Soundtoys Panman, which I have a cool video on. I'll leave you a link down below. Really, when it comes to the panning and the creating of the space, it's more about your creative input and what you feel you want the listener to be imagining. Imagine you're in an audience listening to this on stage, and where would these instruments be placed on that stage? Or you could put yourself in the position of, say, the drummer. The listener's listening where the drummer's sitting, and maybe they're, the guitarist is over here to the right, and the keyboardist is to the left. And so it's all about how you want to frame the reference point of your song's stage. So I hope that helps you out. As you can see, even just panning a few things like I've done in this track that I just started makes a huge difference. First, getting the volumes right is going to make the biggest difference. I cannot stress that enough. So make sure you go back and check out my video on K-metering. I show you how to set it up. I'll leave you a link up above so you can get to that, and I'll leave you a link at the end of this video. If you happen to enjoy this video and you like what you saw, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help me out. Hitting that like button and the bell notification will keep you up to date on future videos. Once again, my name is Freddie from Distinct Mastering, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.